Welcome back to the Joseph Graham Show. Today I'm super excited to have Sterling Seizert. Did I say it correctly? I did. Okay.
Got it.
Sometimes I have a really bad way of saying people's names and I don't ever want to mess it up. Now, I met you through my good buddy Aaron Hale, who's been on here I think two times. He'll probably be on a third time again because he's just fun to come on. He has crazy stories. But that's not about Aaron today. I just want to give a shout out. What I always like to start this out at, because Aaron's like, you have to have him on, is who are you? Who do you help and what do you do?
Okay. Yeah. So, like I said, I'm Sterling. I was an Army guy. I was a Green Beret for 12 years. Got out, and through the time in the Army, I was really pursuing my own financial freedom and really trying to just figure out how the world worked financially. And from there, I started to help people as I learned more and kept doing that conversation. And now I try to just help everybody I can. I wrote a book about it, really just so that way they can understand how money actually works, so that way they can determine likely outcomes from whatever choices they make.
I love that. Like I see the plaque behind it. The moment the camera came on before I'm like a million a year is 83,333 a month. And I literally just dropped a website and I have this post. You don't rise to the level of your dreams, you fall to your systems and processes. And you have to know your numbers. That's like key in sales. I don't
Yep.
want to get into that yet because you just glazed over. I was a Green Beret, I think is what you said. Or were you an Army Ranger? Which one was it?
I was a Green Beret.
I was a Green Beret. And it was in the military. Then I decided to make money after I got okay. First and foremost, we're coming into the 4th of July, 250 years. So thank you for your service.
Hey, thank you.
Secondly, that's a big shift. Now, don't take this wrong. Most entrepreneurs I run into are like the oddballs. They don't follow the typical path. But to be successful in the military, there's a lot of structure and a lot of different things that a lot of entrepreneurs just would suck at. Like they just would, like the ones that I
Mhm.
know at least.
Yeah.
So were you always entrepreneurial to begin with, or what made you go from being in a very structured environment to pretty much, I'm going to be the leader of my own world, cast off on my own ship, and just make my life happen?
Yeah, so I just realized I think a lot of people around me are smart, intelligent people, but it just wasn't for me. I wanted to be the captain of my own ship, if you will, right? And it just came to the point where I don't mind. I'm a great follower as well. I will follow someone if they deserve to be followed.
Right.
And that's where I started to have challenges, is I just started to see things differently. And where I came from in special forces was I had so much operational latitude that I was okay. I
Mhm.
was able to drive the ship for my missions, my operations. And even when I became an instructor, I was luckily given the NCOIC job where we didn't have, which is non-commissioned officer in charge, right? Where we didn't have an officer above me really there. We did at the next level, but no
Mhm.
one in direct oversight. So we were able to kind of adapt and really create what we wanted based upon what was going on in the real world, which was fantastic. So yeah, I've always been entrepreneurial, and I brought kind of like an intrapreneur
Mhm.
perspective to the Army. And then from there, I wanted to create my own thing and, in essence, test my own theories out in the real world as I was learning, through reading books, listening to podcasts, all that stuff. I just wanted to keep pushing, keep driving, really, because I had a passion for making my family free,
Mhm. No, I love
because
that. And
we've been under so much control, in essence, from
yeah.
the Army, where I had to ask a grown man if I could leave leave my home by 200 miles or more. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
like I started to just push back against that.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't think about till you said it, but the special forces, Green Berets, Navy SEALs, special ops, you guys have a lot more latitude and a lot more decision making capabilities compared to like the normal service men and women. So that makes sense. So let's move forward. You get out of the army and you're like, okay, cool. I'm gonna chart my own path. You need to make money. What way did you start to do that? Because there were so many different avenues you could do. What way did you find worked for you?
Yeah, so for me, I needed something that wouldn't take a ton of my time, but I also knew that it was going to still take some of my time and some of my effort. And I needed to build skills and knowledge to be able to do that. Because otherwise, the ROI, I wasn't going to be able to just invest the couple $1,000s I had
Hmm.
and then make a considerable ROI. That's just not the way the world works financially, right? So I knew that I had to bring skills and knowledge in order to be able to do that, as well as, give some effort and some hard work towards it. So I ended up going right into multifamily investing.
Hmm.
And my big thing was learning how to find good deals, how to source good deals, and just the deal analysis side. And then once I could do that, then I could operate those properties from there. So that allowed me to come in with very little money because I had very little money,
Hmm.
and find other people that had more money than time, and kind of, find the partnership that worked out. I'm not a big syndication guy. I'm a big fan of joint ventures because I think
Hmm.
it aligns interests better overall, I think. But yeah, that's what I got my start in, was multifamily investing, just because I fell in love with kind of the scale of it,
Hmm.
and economies of scale versus like single families and flipping and things like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes sense. So I've talked to a lot of real estate people. I've looked into that. I'm not in real estate, but like if I was going to get into that, it would be multifamily because you have multiple doors. So if you lose one renter, you still have 3 to 10 to 12, however many your size is. So you have a little bit more of the risk saying. So you do more joint ventures with partners instead of like a RET or like a investment type of fund.
Right.
Um, and then I think, and I'm maybe leading the witness here, but because of your strategic expertise with being a Green Beret and looking at complex things and all, you've used that and leveraged the leadership and knowledge you got from that aspect into picking the right places, checking and making the systems and processes. Does this deal make sense? How did you learn that aspect though? Because that is still risky. I mean, life is risk, so don't take that wrong. But
Right.
learning how to pick the right property could make or break you. How did you go about learning that? Did you like study it on books? Did you go with your gut? What was that system like?
So I did learn through books, and then it got to the point where I read, of course, like Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Hmm.
I read David Lindahl's books. I read McElroy's books, and a few other people that really I thought their perspective and their walkthrough of the math was simple. But then
Hmm.
I knew I needed to be able to go a little deeper than that, of course, right? And learn real financially modeling, and um, what exactly investors need and look for. So I had to learn that. So I actually hired a coach, man. I think
Hmm.
coaches are invaluable. And don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about guru. I'm talking about a
I'm
coach.
with
You know
you.
what I mean?
Yep, yep.
So I'm talking about someone who's actually doing what you're doing, someone who you can actually trust. Because to me, it's just wild. People will go spend, $100,000 on a college education, and that doesn't guarantee them anything.
Right.
And but they want a guarantee from a coach and stuff like that. And I get it, but I didn't have the money. I actually put it on a credit card. It was a
Hmm.
massive leap of faith, but it was
Yep.
one of those things that lit a fire under my ass that it's going to be burning unless I get my ass moving. So
Hmm.
that was what the perspective I took, is it was just this massive leap of faith. Hey, what's the worst that could happen? Yeah, it could go bad, but ultimately I knew that if I just keep going, just keep pushing, it'll work. And as long as I do business well and be trustworthy with people,
Hmm.
easy.
So how did you vet your coach? Because like I'm a sales coach and I
Mhm.
get it all the time and I'm always explaining to people, I'm like, what's their track record? Did they get what 10,000 K month and showed you? And then I've worked in corporate America for so long. I won President Circles Awards dealing with multi-million and billion-dollar companies at the C-suite level. I can help you figure it out. I like laying the track record foundation. How did you vet? Because there's a ton of people. I know a ton of people in the real estate. Some I would trust, and some like, yeah, no. And how did you vet them out?
So one of them was, he came across to me as very humble, like
Mhm.
number one. So he didn't give me the guru vibes, if
Yep. Yep.
you get what I'm saying, right? So, and then from there, he was active in the market I was in. I met him in person. I actually knew him. His name was actually Bill Bronchek out in Denver.
Hmm.
He's an attorney as well, but he's been in the real estate game for a really long time. And I was definitely one that, he's done deals like mine, but I was outside his model. I started to look for single family stuff, wholesaling, all that stuff,
Hmm.
but just it wasn't sexy to me. So I was like,
Yeah.
man, I'm bored.
Hmm.
And then I was like, I want to get into this. And I ended
Yep.
up, thank God, he still had the knowledge, because he actually what happened is I went through like a rich dad thing, and I was
Hmm.
like, okay, maybe this, and it's like it felt scammy, right? It
Hmm.
felt
Yep. Yep.
guru-y. And I'm not saying anything. I just the way I felt, right?
Hmm.
I ended up seeing an ad. I think it was just an ad on like Facebook or something like that for Bill's conference in Denver or how to do creative financing and small to mid-sized multifamily. And I was like, well, perfect. This is exactly what I need to learn.
Hmm.
And as a local guy, he was going to be the one teaching it. And that's exactly what I wanted. I didn't want something that was just licensed to someone else, right?
Right.
Because then it's not really their reputation on the line. So I thought that was a big piece of the building the trust and vetting them out. And then on top of that, through the process of teaching, when they teach and they actually give you in-depth answers, and it isn't just like a lot of these conferences where it's like they teach you back a napkin analysis and then call it a day, and then they're like, all right, go find deals.
Hmm.
No, like you could actually sit there and ask questions, and he had real depth behind what was just on the slides.
Yeah.
So that gave me the confidence to be like, all right. And then on top of that, he was an attorney,
Hmm.
which to me helped. Not necessarily that attorneys are all good people, but that he at least he could help with some of the other aspects of the business besides just learning the real estate game.
Mhm. Well, but credibility too, because he understands law, so he can't screw you like some of these other gurus could. I
Right.
love what you said there, though. He could actually give you depth and insight knowledge into the actual deal, not a high level thing. And you said he's actually making the investments. I have that rule too. Like I've hired coaches. There's some people like I don't know if you know who the late great Steve Sims is. I was in his group for a while because he had a proven track record of what he did. Again,
Mhm.
I look at it that way. I know some of the gurus. I'm like, I don't there's too much of a guru culture, and I harp on them all the time. There's too much of a guru culture. If you haven't actually done something for real in the industry you're trying to sell, don't coach it. It
Yeah.
just doesn't make sense. You had
Yep.
one good month, don't coach it. That doesn't count. You got
Mhm.
lucky. I mean, you're dealing with people's lives and all. And I'm all about helping people wake up to a life they want to live, not the other.
Yep.
And I like that you did this. So you stepped into it, you started doing it, and now because you've done it and you're successful, you're kind of modeling. I think you said his name was Bill. He was doing it before. Now you're like, hey, I'm going to give this knowledge back. Where did
Mhm.
that part come from? Because there's a lot of successful people I know that don't want to give back, or not want to give back. They don't want the time and the hassle, or they're just in the deals, like just making the thing. So, what made you decide, hey, not only am I going to change my family's legacy, but other people's?
It started with changing the people around me's life by when they start, you probably know how it is. It's like people around you, they start noticing what you're doing. And
Mm-hmm.
they're like, yeah, initially when you're first like getting started, they kind of like shuck it off. Like they may even laugh it off like assholes, but they'll
Mm-hmm.
eventually they start seeing it when you start proving it. And then
Yep.
they come up to you and they're like, hey man, what are you doing? Like, and why? Why are you doing it this way? Why are you doing it that way? What specifically about this asset type? And they want to know the depth, behind your knowledge base. So I started to have so many conversations over and over and over again that it came out where I started to actually, as I was having these conversations, a little extra thing would click in my own brain every
Mm-hmm.
conversation on a better way to explain it, on
Right.
a simpler way to understand things. And it came to a point where I started to build out like my own frameworks of understanding on how money moved, assets appreciated, cash flow, control over assets, risk, things like that, to the point where now I can have a very simple conversation. And now the conversation is just like, hey, first off, start with my book. I'm not trying to like, I make like
Mm-hmm.
$2 off the book. I'm just trying to save the conversation piece of it. Then when you get there, once you've digested that, now we can have a deeper conversation on more of the specifics, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this gives you at least a framework to understand why I do what I do and why a lot of other asset owners do what they do versus following the traditional, 9 to 5 kind of playbook.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. And I love that you have a place for them to start because a lot of times people will do that and they'll do high level coaching or what they call high level coaching. And it's just the basic stuff. Having the basics, I think you're a lot like me. I like complex things. That's just
Me
why
too.
I honestly still work in corporate America because I get to tell CEOs and CFOs what to do at multi-million and billion-dollar companies. Like, hey,
Yeah.
you should do this. And it's like fun to me. Um,
Yeah.
but like when I get into coaching, I tried to coach, and there's no shade, and people know this. I tried to coach like entry level type of stuff. And I'm like, I'm bored. Like you said, I got bored with it. So
Mhm.
having the book, I think, is a good piece. So once they read the book, they actually have like a basic knowledge of it. Then they can actually start getting into the work. Do you do like group coaching, or do you do like one-on-one, or a little bit of both? Or do you even vet them? And I know I ask long questions. Or do you even vet them to be like, hey, this is a person I think maybe I want to bring into a deal and invest? How does that
Yeah.
work?
So I've kind of built out a very, very low end, cheap kind of funnel, right? It's
Hmm.
the book. If you're interested in it, hey, read the book. And I'll gladly talk to people if they DM me and stuff too, right? But
Yep,
here,
same.
these are why and how and the specifics of what I do and why. And to me, it follows what I learned from reality. Because, like you said, is where did I learn kind of how to do this and mitigate risks and all this other stuff? I learned intelligence frameworks and operational frameworks from being a Green Beret that now
Hmm.
I just do. I use that to understand how does money actually flow? How does influence flow? How does assets and things change hands and move through the world so that way you can actually understand, all right, well then why are you doing, for instance, why are we following going to college, getting a good job, go to school, do all that? Like what is the likely outcome of that path? And then okay,
Hmm.
now what if you do this? What is the likely outcome of that path? And there's assumptions made on both sides, of
Yep.
course, right? But as long as you call those assumptions out, then you know what the expectations are of each path, right?
Hmm.
To get there. And that was my ultimate goal is like, even for instance, risk is one of my favorite things to talk about because people say, and even you mentioned it, hey, isn't that risky? Well, sure, if you don't know what you're doing,
Hmm.
100% that's risky. Like if someone said, hey man, you want to flip this house, I'd be like, that's risky. And I don't mean it's risky for them, it's risky for me because I don't know what the hell I'm doing flipping a house.
Right, right.
Right. So for me, risk comes down to a lack of predictability. And
Hmm.
really, if that predictability is merely just a function of knowledge and control, that's it. So if in theory, if you know everything and have pure control, there is no risk,
Right.
right? So now obviously we have a degree of those in some way, what, based on external factors, based on, our agreements with people, things like that for control. But then knowledge, it's just a function now of knowledge, right? So
Hmm.
if you study your market, if you study your asset, if you know all that, and then build in like, okay, what if plans. So going back to the military, pace and contingency plans, right? It's if you have contingency plans like if this, then this. And
Hmm.
that's something in the Intel world I did for my team is we actually built out most likely courses of action for our enemy and then most dangerous courses of action for our enemy
Hmm.
for every operation. So if we were just going out on a patrol, it's all right, what is the most likely thing that's going to happen? What's the most dangerous thing that's going to happen? And I had to build what it would generally look like. What is the
Hmm.
indicator that we're shifting from most likely to most dangerous? And the same thing goes for investing, right?
Hmm.
You should be looking for those indicators. What are the two or three or four like market indicators or interest rates rising, those kind of little indicators that will tell you something's shifting here.
Hmm.
I need to now prepare for the most dangerous course of action, which means do I need to get out of this asset? Do I need to shift my operational posture on it? Whatever it may be. Does that make sense?
100%. And what you did there, if people are paying attention, is it's level credibility to why you do what you do. And you
Yeah.
use the story because people use stories to actually sell. Like I'm a sales guy. That's where my world comes. And
Yeah.
no, I love the fact of that because it made it to the sense that I don't think most people think that way, even entrepreneurs,
No.
because they think, oh, I'm just going to do this. And they try to weigh the risk, but I don't think they say best case, worst case. And if you look at best case, worst case, okay, you start over. Oh no, you've started from scratch before. It's just the same thing. I think what it is that we've been programmed, most people, to get the 9 to 5, go to school, go to college, do the thing. And I'm like, that normally doesn't work. Most people I know that go to college don't work for the job. It works for the business owner. So yeah, if you just want to work for someone and not have any decisions or risk, sure, go ahead. And I'm saying this working for someone, but I'm in a different level with because I'm really good at sales. They kind of let me do what I want and leave me
Yeah.
alone and let me whenever I want to do something, pretty much I get to do it. So like you said in the military, you had that ability to make decisions and stuff. I call sales the ones that I do like entrepreneur like because I still have to kill to eat. I still have to, plan and do all that stuff. But I think risk is just learning what you're comfortable with going into and doing. I can sit in front of like I was talking about, people that own million to billion dollars companies, negotiate with them, no big deal. But I wouldn't try and tell you how to sell a house because I don't understand that aspect. So I think
Exactly.
that's the key. What do you know? Do you know it well enough that you can teach it at a sixth grade level? And what I mean by that is most people understand at that level. Can you break it down that a sixth grader would understand? Not that people
Yes.
are there and then have the track record and show it. So no, I love that. I think that's great.
That's actually the exact way I tried to write my book. Honestly, Joe, that is the exact way I tried to write my book. I tried to write it so that way my middle school daughters could understand it.
Hmm.
And they could be like, all right, and I can ask them questions clarifying. And yeah, they may screw up a little bit here and there, of course, because you're taking a very complex idea like economics and personal finance and things like that and money flows
Hmm.
uh to it. But ultimately that was my goal, is to get it to about a sixth, seventh grade reading level to where it's truly readable and understandable for the masses. So that way, if you choose to, there is another path. Here
Hmm.
is a starting line for you. If my path isn't your path, great. There's
Hmm.
plenty of paths out there. That's the thing, is like, and what you said is so interesting, because one of the things I talk about in the book and really with everybody is understanding employee math. And you already
Hmm.
know this, is you working for someone, the business has to make more money than you create. They
Hmm.
have to make more money than the value you create. Otherwise, the business is not a viable business.
Correct.
And if that's okay with you, great, but understand that that's the truth. That
Hmm.
is real. That is 100% fact.
Yep.
And you have to just be okay with that. And if you're whining about it, then you go take the risk and you go do
Yep.
something different so that way you can keep 100% of the value you create.
Yeah. Well, and I love that. And that's again, while I'll do sales, I'll never just work for an hourly rate because my time's too valuable. But because I know if I bring in, like I was negotiating a $795,000 contract, I'll get a nice chunk of that. I don't get all of it, but because I got
Yeah.
to run the business, but I don't have to do the overhead. I don't have to do the other thing. So it kind of works. But I also do consulting on the side. So if I want to go make more money, I just go get another company to help them do their thing or help someone set something up. I think it's just finding the path that works for you. Like I'll use my kids as an example because I think like my oldest is in college. She loves it. She's a theater major. That's what she wants to do. She wants to teach theater, act. That's her jam. My
Mhm.
son hated school. He's an electrician. He's 21. He's already has so many different hours. He's running jobs as an apprentice for his company because he just has that leadership skill. But by the
Mhm.
time he's 23, 24, he'll have a journeyman with no debt. By the time he's 28, he'll have a master's. Like there's no set path. And my youngest wants to be a scientist. She's 11. We'll see if she wants to. When she gets older, great. I just try to support them and say, hey, there's no rules, just the rules you actually put forth. How do you want to make money? I think school was made, and I want your thoughts on this. I'm shifting a little bit. I feel school was made pretty much for people to be made employees. They're going to give you just enough so that you don't go after your dreams, don't chase your stuff, and don't press the thing. There are some hybrids like me, but I'm rare. I know this. I know mostly it's 100% business owner or 100% worker. But what are
Mhm.
your thoughts on that?
I agree with you 100%. I think that school is actually conditioned to follow and you're probably familiar with it. It was built off the Prussian model, right? Which
Hmm.
was creation for manufacturing and soldiers. I mean, that was the primary goal, was to get people used to that 9 to 5 feeling, stuck in one place, sitting still at one spot and all that. But rarely does the real world business world work that way. The
Hmm.
employees of businesses work that way, but no one that's actually transacting works that way.
Right.
And without those transactions, none of the other support and admin and all these other people would have jobs. So real business works with movement.
Hmm.
It works through cash flows and movement of people.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I think it 100% models that, and it conditions you for that. And then on top of that, I mean, not trying to get political at all, but I mean the politics of it now are even worse.
Hmm.
Where it's just turned into like propaganda both ways. I mean, depending on where
Hmm.
you go. And unfortunately, people always say, man, I really wish schools taught like personal finance and this and business and this. I'm like, I don't, because I don't trust teachers who have no real incentive to teach it properly,
Hmm.
to teach it properly.
Yeah. Or no real world knowledge. Don't take this wrong. Teachers are great. We need them. I'm
Yeah.
not being mean there, but most people make the jokes that if you're teaching business in school, it's because you can't run a business. You're teaching principles or ideas, and a lot of times they're antiquated. Like they're old. That's why like I'm always teasing people, go, yeah, you're talking to that sales guy. He was great 20 years ago. That worked then. Everything's changing now. Same thing with business, with all the different things out there and with AI now, I think you have to figure out what is it you really want to do. So it's cool. So there's a bunch of opportunity and there's a bunch of what level of risk do you want. And I think you just have to decide that. I'm going to go back to the plaque because it keeps jumping out to me. I love that. Is that like just something that you just found the how much to make 1 million in a year, or is that just something that you're like, hey, everyone talks about it? Because funny little side note, this show was started. It used to be called the 150K podcast because about 5 years ago when I started it, if you didn't live in New York or LA and you made 150K, you could take your wife to Hawaii, which I did, and you can take your kids to Disney and still live a decent life. You're not like balling tripping, but most people, 18% of people make over 100,000 a year. That's the stats, individual entrepreneur. So with the million thing, is that just a goal that you had a while ago and then blew past, or where's the plaque come from?
Yeah, it's basically an adaptive goal, actually. So my partners and I that were in the joint venture together kind of came up with it for ourselves, and that's for net to us, not gross, right? Because
Hmm.
gross is for ego.
Yep, yep.
But net to us, we wanted as our partnership, that was our first goal, and now we hit there, and now it's like, all right, now it's the adaptive goal to all right. Now the next goal was that hitting that myself,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
So that's all it is it's just a constant reminder of like what I'm here for. And it's not that money drives me, but the idea of the what money as a tool does for me and my family,
Hmm.
that drives me like wild. So
Yeah.
um
No, I'm with you. And you could say money drives you. That doesn't hurt my feelings because if it's the entrepreneur, it's the business owner, it's the creator that changes the world and gets different things. That's why Elon's a trillionaire. Whether you like him or not, he fixes shit. He made a rocket actually come back and land on a platform. They
yep.
made fun of him when it fell into the sea and blew up a bunch of times. But guess what? Now he's actually using his rockets for other people. He's
Mhm.
sending up, he's even charging his competitors to send their shit up. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, sure, in the beginning, like you said, people are going to think you're crazy, but who cares? The cheap seats are always going to cry because they never chase their dreams, they never chase their goals, and they only think about it. It's the ones that take actions that win.
Yeah. And it's funny. I actually found like people are kind of they doubt you or they whatever you want to call it, doubt you, talk shit behind your back, whatever you want to say, for three reasons, right? One, they know a bunch of other people that were just talkers and
Hmm.
they never followed through and all that, right? So they just are like, all right, you're probably just another one of those guys.
Hmm.
Two, your ambition makes them stare in the mirror their lack of ambition.
Yep.
Or three, they just love you and they don't want to deal with the fallout of you failing if you do fail, like your
Hmm.
parents or other people. Because they're like, I mean, ultimately, if you look at skin in the game, what if when you're 20, you fail? What happens? You end up back on a mom and dad's couch and they have to
Hmm.
pay this or pay that and take care of you and be there to support you emotionally and all the other things. In essence, they feel like they have more skin in the game than you do. So it's
Yeah.
understandable, right?
Yeah.
Like your mom and dad, they love you like crazy, but they probably don't necessarily give a shit if you achieve your dreams. They just
Hmm.
want you happy,
Yeah.
right? Because your dreams are scary to go after for them also. Just like as a parent, right?
Hmm.
You're scared about your kid doing this and this and this. You just want them to stay in this little box
Hmm.
so that way they stay safe. You want them to be happy, but
Yeah.
ultimately you're more worried about the risks than the benefits of that risk, right? So
Hmm.
that's one of the things I noticed. Like, stop trying to listen to mom and dad about every little thing because they don't necessarily have your best interest at heart. They think they do,
Hmm.
and they love you like crazy, but they don't.
Well,
You
because
know?
they're always still trying to protect you. Like that's
Mhm.
just a parent. They're going to protect you.
Yep.
I've learned to start like when my daughter moved out a couple years ago, it was the weirdest thing. And I was like, oh, this is crazy. Then I ended up moving from Texas to Arizona. So we're like 1,000 miles away. And
Yeah.
so it's even crazier. And now I'm like, okay. But now I've gotten to the point where I'm comfortable with it. My son actually just went on a solo trip to Zion. I'm like, dude, you should do
Wow.
this. He's 21. I'm like, bro, you have no girlfriend right now. You have no bills because I have a rule. This is my gift back to my kids. If you're in school, trade school, college, don't care, whatever it is, you can stay home for free because you're
Hmm.
trying to build your thing. That's my way
Yep.
to help out. I don't care if it's trade school, college, whatever, it's fine.
Yep.
And so he's been doing that, saving all this money. So he just went on a solo trip design. He's like, that was probably one of the best adventures I've ever had. I said, yeah, if you have any other ones before you get a girlfriend, get anything going, do it now because they're expensive and life will happen. I'm like, but his streams are still probably going to make me be like, holy crap, because I'm still dad, I'm still protective.
Yeah.
And I know I blow my parents away because, like, I've done a bunch of stuff. I've tried things, I've failed things, I've left jobs because I found out wells weren't producing. Ended
Hmm.
up working two jobs, going on food stamps. I want to talk about the grit of what happens when you take risks, and sometimes you have to just go through that process. Because I'm sure it wasn't linear. I'm sure you didn't just get out, you did your first business, you got your first thing, and it was perfect, it was easy. Or maybe it was for you. Maybe you did get lucky and you were just smart enough and understand the process. But how, talk about the entrepreneurial journey of building a life you love because it's not like the normal 9 to 5. You punch out and it's 6 o'clock and you're done for the day. Life happens.
Yeah. So, and I think that's some of the big thing is I was driven hard by, I was typically used to going on deployments and things like this. So I was driven so hard by being able to just be there with my family. So that while I was still on active duty, I was actively trying to find and assess and buy assets, pivoting a few different times because I would have to move duty stations. I would deploy. So I lost momentum initially. And then from there, I kind of pivoted because I saw an opportunity when I got to my next duty station and doing kind of a more like a short-term rental arbitrage play
Mhm.
with people coming in for military training. So I found houses, I would rent the houses because they
Mhm.
were military families that were underwater on long-term rentals. So
Right.
I would say, all right, well, I can benefit you here. This is what I'll do. And I'll rent it and make you even, at least plus some. So that way
Mhm.
you're at least not losing money on this place because a couple people were losing 600-700 bucks a month,
Oof.
on some of
Yeah.
their places. And when you're making 5-6 grand, that's a chunk of change.
Yeah.
So I figured it was a benefit for both sides, and we signed agreements on everything. So it was a fun little thing. But again, then I didn't like that because it
Mhm.
was, I had to deal with too many like uh fires, you know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep.
Of just like I had to constantly be on the go and ready and on call kind of thing, right? So then I pivoted back to doing multifamily and then I pivoted to self-storage.
Mhm.
But thank God I never got myself into, and I don't know if it was the lucky stars of the market, if it was, here and there. Did I lose some money here and there? Sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Just by stupid choices because I made emotional choices versus actually logical choices, right?
Yep.
Following a
Yep.
framework of some kind. So I did catch myself in those moments, but really it was more of the emotional roller coaster than anything. My deals were okay, but it's just pivoting and learning and all right, what skill now do I need to learn in order to be successful in this part, in this market and things. So it kept going up and down to the point where finally got to that point where for me, and I'm again, this isn't a political statement, but it came to a point where I was still working for somebody but
Mhm.
my assets were paying me just as much as my salary
Yep.
and my
Yep.
lifestyle was good. So I was like, well, I'm in no real rush to quit this job if I don't have to. The job was fine. I was
Mhm.
working as a contractor teaching people battlefield forensics and ripping cell phones and targeting bad guys off of those kind of things, right?
Mhm.
So it was fun.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. You
then
enjoyed it. Yeah.
yeah, I enjoyed that. But then it got to a point where the vaccine mandate came down
Mm.
and I'm a pretty hardcore on that. So like, and again, that's not political. It's just about choice. I don't
That's
tell you what
choice.
to do. Don't
100%.
tell me what to do.
With you.
So
Yep.
yeah, so it's just like, all right, like you're really holding that. So it came to the point where I, thank God, had built this with my wife prior to that moment.
Mhm.
Thank God I made the choice 8 years prior to this to start building this. Right.
Mhm.
And that's the other thing too is people need to understand you don't have to just quit your job and jump in. You can keep a job and build this other thing on the side. You
Yep.
just need to build something deliberately that fits within what you're trying to do along with your current lifestyle. And
Mhm.
and and figure that piece out. Because then when that moment comes, if there's something, a toxic boss or a harassment case or you get fired because of the economy or whatever, you have this backup. And then it's
Mhm.
like, all right, that
Let's go.
sucks, but let's go. I
Yeah.
mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And that's something that it's such a free feeling when you don't have to worry about that. And then on top of that, I don't have to worry about my retirement. I have assets that pay me now, and I have assets that pay me in the future. I
Hmm.
don't give a shit. Like so that's one of the things I try to like talk to people is like your entrepreneurial journey doesn't have to be like, all right, I'm taking this massive leap of faith. No,
Hmm.
keep
I'm
your
with you.
job, man. Keep your job and learn the skills you need to learn. Go out and dabble a little bit. Figure out what you find sexy, what you like, what fits what you want to do, and then start going in a little bit by little bit by little bit in the margins of your normal everyday life, right? I would call brokers on my lunch hour. I
Hmm.
would listen to podcasts on my way home from work, right? To
Yep.
get my
Yep.
education in. I would wake up at 5 and read for 30 minutes before my wife would get up, and then we'd have our coffee together. So like there's so many ways to just fit in these little things to make it work without having these crazy up and downs. Whereas so that way you're building trust with your spouse through the
Hmm.
process because you aren't putting this massive risk, right? Like, babe, we're betting everything, we're going all in. Let's go. And and
Yep.
and and thank God she saw, all right, like he's trying to take care of the family.
Hmm.
And she was like, I want to help. And that's how you build, partnerships with it. But it kept everything kind of nice and evenly up and down here. It didn't create massive up and downs because we built what I'll call smart, and didn't have any massive things. And I thank God to my, intelligence training, I look for indicators on everything. So if anything, lost out on holding assets a little longer than I probably could have
Hmm.
because I was like, I don't like the way this is looking. So let's just get out. Let's take it. Hey, am I okay with losing a little bit more? Yeah, I am.
Hmm.
We did good. All right. So that's it, is just know whatever your indicators are and actually stick to them. And then you'll avoid a lot of those massive upswings and downswings.
Yeah, no, I love that. In fact, if you're listening, rewind. This is what I tell people because I hear all the time the crap he burned the ships. And what they don't even freaking realize about that story is Cortez was going to die if he went back to Havana. This was the least risky option for him. Now, his crew was screwed because he burned the ships. He
Right.
forced them to do that. But Cortez dies if he goes back to Havana. If he wins
Yep.
in Mexico, he wins. So it's least risky for him. He
Mhm.
actually weighed the cost. And I've seen so many people in the gurus. This is what pissed me off about the gurus. Just you have to go all in. No, you don't. I love
No.
what you did. Like I do what I'm doing right now because I can build assets, do this stuff. And then guess what? I don't have to coach anyone I don't want to. I don't
Yep.
have to do anything I don't want to because I have a plan in place. I love
Yep.
that you did that. So that, again, rewind that, especially if you're a first-time entrepreneur, if you're in sales and you're thinking of making the move or any of those type of things, don't burn your family because relationships. I've seen so many people's marriages and lives crush because someone wanted to have a dream and then they put this pressure on their family, but they're not ready to actually succeed. So that 100% agree.
Yeah, in my book, I actually write about it like stages of income, right? And I write stage one is hourly income. We all kind of generally start
Hmm.
there at our first job. Stage two is like what the colleges teach you to go get some salary job at a thing where you're responsible for some sort of role in a company, right?
Hmm.
And then stage three is kind of like the sales stuff. It's transactional income, right? If you flip houses, if you're a realtor, if you're a loan officer, if you're in outside sales, inside sales, whatever it is, you are paid for an outcome only, right?
Hmm. Yep.
And then where I think it starts to get into where you were just saying is it's the ownership piece. And that is where I call stage four income, which is semi-passive. And then
Hmm.
everybody talks about this holy grail of passive income, and that's
Yep.
stage five. I talk about it as stage four is real because
Hmm.
that is where you can get, I call it like highly leveraged income, where, after you get the system moving and built and some momentum built, you can spend 4, 10, 20 hours a week in that system and make way more than you could make at a traditional salary job.
Hmm.
I working 40 hours a week. So, but again, you can be at different income stages at different points in your life, and you can be at multiple at once,
Hmm.
just like you are right now, just
Yeah.
like I am right now. I wrote a book. That's technically passive income if it just would start kicking out more, right? Not
Hmm.
very much, but it's there, right? And then I do self storage now, which I actually still
Hmm.
operate because I like the control aspect of it. because
Yep.
if you lack control, you typically lose returns also. So I like that part. So that's a stage 4. And then I do some other stuff where I'll do like a little bit of sales or a little bit of consulting. That's stage 3,
Hmm.
transactional stuff. So it's all just, you can be in that all. It's just, okay, where do you want to go? And then how do you generally get there? Maintain your stage 2 salary job while you're building maybe a side hustle in a stage 3 income where you start doing some realtor or something like that on the side in order for you to learn real estate more or whatever. But then eventually you got to buy assets. You have to have ownership to move into those stage 4 income and stage 5 income, right? But
Hmm.
so many people try to move right into passive income when passive income, I'm sorry, like you need 5 million plus to move into passive income where it's actually meaningful income. I mean,
Hmm.
otherwise you're trying to build something when you're trying to grow this from, 100, couple 100,000 to maybe a million. And then you're like, oh, I can live off that. It's like, yeah, you can right now during a bull market for the last 14, 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? What's going to happen here in the next 4?
Yeah. If it crashes, it goes.
Yeah.
It's funny. I don't know if you know him, and I can intro you. Tony Watley did that. He worked for a multi-million-dollar oil company or billion-dollar oil company, and
Yeah.
he took two businesses that he liked to do on the side to over a million before he finally just launched out and did his thing. And
I
it's
love it.
just building it how it works for you. And I
Hmm.
think that's the problem. Everyone wants the fame and the fortune. I want the impact and the legacy. That's the
Hmm.
difference between who I consider real operators in this space and the guru boys that are just trying to get the fame. I don't care about the fame. I'm already
Yeah.
married. I don't need any hot chicks talking to me. I don't want to deal
No,
with that shit. I like
exactly.
I like to go on trips. If I can pay to go on trips, like next year I'm going to go to New Zealand and do the half marathon through Hobbleton because I'm a
Heck
Lord of
yeah.
the Rings nerd and I'm going to turn
There you
50 and
go.
it's kind of like my little thing. I think it's finding the path that you love to do, but I loved what you said there. You will always have different levels and different layers you can touch and push. It's just what is your end goal? So here's the question for you, Sterling, because I love this about this. For you, and again, you can put a number into it. What is an end goal for you with like your passive income? Is it like 10 million? Is it 100 million? Is it a billion? What is it? Because there's different, you already know this. There's different levels of responsibility and different levels of things you would have to do. What would be that for you?
So I've learned that speed to certain levels is what creates the hustle, right?
Mhm.
So if you want to go from, 100 grand a year to making, 500 grand a year, there's going to be a lot of hustle in that
Yep.
grind, right? Especially if you're doing your own thing, you're going to have to be the lead generator, you're going to have to be the salesman, you're going to have to be, the CFO, you're going to have to do all that. There's going to be a ton of hustle. I don't want that hustle. So
Hmm.
I'm okay going slower,
Yep.
right? So I am more focused not on necessarily my end money goal as I am on my right now time investment goal.
Hmm.
And yeah, it goes in like, hey, I'll go, hey, I know I need to get this in order to get to this next level. I don't mind working these next couple weeks for a few hours extra to really push that, right?
Yep.
Got it. Perfect. But I am not a hustle bro. I
No.
will not be the guy that's just because you already know this too. So many people confuse just motion for true productivity when
Hmm.
most of the time, if you watch them, just what they're doing, you're like, that was a waste of fucking time. You can just
Yeah.
do this and you got the same result. But you wanted the credit to look like a hustle bro. You wanted
Hmm.
the reputation to be I'm a hustler. And it's like, no, man, I just want to get here to there. I want to live an amazing life with my wife. She's my best friend,
Hmm.
right? I want to live an amazing life with her. I want to great experiences for my daughters, and I just want to go make money with my friends. You know
Yep.
what I mean?
Yep.
That's
Yep.
ultimately what it comes down to. And now my purpose is I got to that point where I was financially free, but I was bored, right?
Hmm.
So
Yep.
I was like this, just sitting there and like and my brain goes. You
Hmm.
you can tell I'm a pretty energetic guy, right?
Yes, sir.
So
Yep.
so my brain is going constantly, and I know I needed to, if that action wasn't going to be going into something productive, it was going to be going in like picking on my wife. You know what I mean? So I needed to put it into action and
Yes.
actually do something productive with it. So that's where I got into, all right, maybe I'll do more formalized, try to like coaching, teach people how to do this stuff. And then that's where the book came from. And I was like, all right, that was great because I spent literally like a year plus straight all my free time and all my brain energy were just going into this and editing and cleaning it up and, formalizing my thoughts. So, uh, I think that's one of the biggest things is just finding, like you said, is finding the thing that works for you
Hmm.
and moving towards that as slow as you can from or as fast as you want to, I should say.
Right.
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 So, and understanding what you're giving up because there's trade-offs. You're either giving up a lot of time in order to get that speed, or you're giving up your speed in order to keep that effort relatively consistent throughout. Right. So for me, I was like, all right, this is where I'm good. I got my financial freedom. I live a
Hmm.
good life. We can travel, we can do most anything. I don't need to be making $1 million a year right now. I'll get there.
Hmm. Yep. I'm with
Don't
you.
get me wrong. As long as I'm on this path, the likely outcome of my path, I'll get there.
Hmm.
But I'm in no crazy rush to do that, right? I am not going to sacrifice working 50, 60, 70 hour weeks to get there. I won't. You know what I mean? That isn't why I got financial freedom in the first place. So that was it. Is for me, it's about my priorities.
Hmm.
So for me, I don't necessarily have a number. I'll get there. Do I want to make $1 million a year? Yeah. Will I get there? Yeah, probably in about 4 or 5 years.
Hmm.
But I'm in no crazy rush. You know, my primary goal, I got a junior starting this year and a freshman in high school. And
Hmm.
my primary goal is, especially while they're in high school, I'm going to be the guy that's at every sporting event, every
Yep.
school
Yep.
event they are. I'm not going to be gone, speaking and doing all this and hunting for more assets and building syndication models and buying Lambos and all that other shit. I don't care about that.
Hmm.
I wear a free watch and I drive a Dodge Ram.
We are very aligned, my friend. I literally, and I will say this. There was a time in my life when I first started in sales and didn't know anything that I was hustling hard, like pushing hard because I was trying to provide and all. But once I
Yeah.
learned the systems and processes that worked, I literally, I like, and I've mentioned it before, I've won President Circles Wars and all. I
Mhm.
was leaving by 1 o'clock to go do
Yeah.
what I wanted because I had my systems and processes in place. And I think that's a valuable thing. It's not all the energy. It's what are you doing and are you being present in the time that you're at? And then
Mhm.
also what vehicle? Because in sales, you can make $1 million if you work really hard, but it's a lot of
Mhm.
time and effort. But in what you're doing with asset acquisitions and all, it takes a little bit more time, but over time, you're going to outperform because the asset keeps adding to it and adding to it and adding to it.
Your
And I think,
compounding income streams,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. And I think that the most valuable times I remember, like I've been in sales 20 years. My son started playing baseball. I suck at baseball. I never played when I was a kid besides which with my friends, right? But he's
Mhm.
like, hey, do you want to be a dugout coach? I'm like, okay. So I literally went to my boss, said, hey, I'm going to come in an hour early. I'm going to come in at 6 instead of 8. And I had sold enough I could get away with this. I'm leaving at 2 these days so I can go be my kid's dugout coach.
Yeah.
And he's like, as long as your numbers don't dip, it was the best experience ever. My numbers didn't dip because I know what I'm doing with that. I know what levers to pull,
Yeah.
just like you do.
Mhm.
And he was 11 and 12, and we did it. And it was one of the coolest things.
Yep.
I think as a father, it's my job to be in their lives like you. I'm not going to miss their stuff. I remember my dad, hard worker. He wasn't in business, but he was always busy. He wasn't like, building a business like I do, but he was always busy. And a lot of times he wasn't able to make it. I'm like, I don't want that to happen. Like
Yeah.
that's their generation that I grew up in Gen X. So
Yeah.
that generation is a different thing. There's different reasonings. But that's one of the things I said. When my kids do stuff, like my daughter just had a 4 hour recital for dance, the youngest one. That was a long recital, but I'm gonna be there. Why? Because I'm the dad. I'm supposed to.
Yep.
I love that, man.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's, I think, is just building your. That's, I think, what kind of the cool part about it is when you don't have someone else dictating your hours, or you
Hmm.
have some sort of operational flexibility, even if it is a job, right? Like it's being able to build a purpose-driven life, whatever that purpose and priorities might be. And that's really ultimately what it comes down to. And that's why I give, like my stages of income is like, what do you actually want? Okay, if you want to do this, all right, now the rest of the book gives you the knowledge base and frameworks to be able to understand, the likely outcomes of your choices. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I love that. We're not done, but where can people find you and find your book?
Yeah, so Amazon's probably the easiest place to find the book. It is at Barnes and Noble online and all that other stuff too. But Buy Your Freedom by Sterling Seizert. And then you can find me on my website, sterlingseizert.com. and that's Seizert. I'm sure you'll put it in the notes.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But I've also actually built something for your guest too. I call it my freedom compass, kind of talking about like, all right, well, what path is right for me, right? So I built an assessment with like a scoring matrix on there that you answer a bunch of questions, and based upon how you score, it'll direct you towards kind of the three main paths of what I call in my book as the freedom assets that can lead there, right? They appreciate, they cash flow, and you have control over them.
Hmm.
That's the three criteria. Um, so it's either, real estate of some kind, it's either some sort of business that you own, or it's a hybrid, kind of like a self-storage where it's kind of like a building asset, but there's a business running within that. Like the building is the operating asset, right?
Hmm.
Assisted living, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I built us out so that way people can take the assessment and get a decent feel for what fits what they want to do in their lifestyle. So that way they can start their research and learning down that path. So that's at sterlingsizer.com/podcast.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that's amazing. My parents used to run storage facilities as well. It's one of the best, most profitable, boring businesses out there. And failure rate is very extremely low. Just throwing that out
Yep.
there. I know we talked about a lot of different things, but is there anything else we missed, whether it's mindset, real estate, being a father, that you want to like leave our listeners with?
No, I think what it comes down to is just realizing what it is that you want and go truly going for it. And that's one of the things when I have conversations, everybody is like, "Oh, I wish I could live the free life like you." Okay, well, go fucking do it.
Hmm.
Like, pardon my language, but
Oh, you're
go
good.
do it. Oh, I don't know where to start. Well, okay, well all right, that's now your problem. Solve that problem.
Hmm.
And that's honestly the problem I'm trying to solve really with that freedom compass I just told you about is like, all right, well, here, the book plus that, you're going to be able to kind of solve at least that problem. And in there, you're going to read a whole bunch of stuff and you're going to find something that you'll love and you're going to find stuff you hate and you're going to be like, I don't want to do that. Cool. Perfect. Everybody has their own things that they like and want to do. So that's I think one of the best things about it is there's an infinite amount of possibilities. Just start learning. Go learn the fundamentals that makes the world go round, which is how money works, how finance works, how business works. Understand the basics. And then
Hmm.
from there, start digging into a niche. And then once you realize you hate that niche, great, go to a different one. And find one that you're like, okay, I like this. It makes sense to me. This is cool. Now go deeper. And that's it. It's just that's what I want people to understand is there is no magic start here. No, there isn't. It's honestly that constructive discontent feeling of like just shit. I know I want more.
Hmm.
Okay, good. Use that as to fuel your fire to go get what you want in your life.
Yeah, no, I love that. Sterling, thank you for being here. And I'm going to leave you with this. Take action. Buy the book. Do the thing. Quit just dreaming about it because you're just going to regret it on your deathbed if you do nothing. Take action. Let Sterling and I know because we're in your corner. We want you to win. That's what this podcast is about. That's why he coaches people and helps people. Share this episode with someone that you know will love it. Or even if you don't think they'll love it and it will provoke them to actually take action, share it with them too. And until next time, I appreciate you. Have a great day.